So what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the course. My name is Robert. If this is your first time tuning in. So what we're going to talk about today in this course is going to be 16 costs associated with opening up an Airbnb or a short-term rental. Again, this isn't financial advice. This is just costs to consider before starting an Airbnb, VRBO, or any other type of short-term rental. A lot of these costs may not be applicable to you, or some may be. At some point, I have multiple properties, so these costs don't apply to every single property, but they may apply to other properties that I have. So without further ado, we're just going to go ahead and get into it. Like I said, stay tuned. It is 16 different costs. These are going to be costs that are reoccurring, either on a monthly basis or on a yearly basis. Sometimes even every check-in, check-out of the guests. So stay tuned. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be informational. Maybe some costs you may have never considered or thought of. Again, this video is aimed more for beginners or even intermediate level investors or Airbnbers who are trying to look into maybe a different market and just haven't thought of all the costs yet. So yeah, like I said, stay tuned. We'll get into it. Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about is going to be pretty obvious. Most of y'all have probably assumed this, but it's going to be your rent or your mortgage. So if you're doing rental arbitrage, you're going to have to consider the rent. Again, there's more things to go in depth about rental arbitrage. First of all, you have to make sure that the landlord even approves this. But for the course, we're going to go over just the cost. Again, these are going to vary based on different locations. If you're in a hotspot like Miami, it's going to be a little bit more expensive for rent. If you're like in Texas, like where I'm at, things are a little bit cheaper or less expensive. Not so much cheaper, but less expensive. Same thing with your mortgage. Your mortgage is going to vary. It's going to vary, especially right now. If you're trying to get into it right now, mortgage rates are a lot higher. Usually around 6% is what I'm seeing right now in the market. 6 to 7% is what most people are getting for their mortgage. I know whenever I first started a couple of years ago, my interest rates were about 2%, 2.1, 2.6, 2.7. I think the worst one was like 3 point something. It was 3 point something. But now if you're trying to get into it, your mortgage is going to be a lot more expensive because the interest rates are a lot higher. Hopefully they'll come back down. We don't know for sure, but again, this isn't any type of financial advice, but mortgage rates have gone up, so you are going to have to consider that. Looking forward if you're trying to get into an Airbnb right now. There's other ways to get into it, but if you're trying to do a conventional mortgage, just know you're going to be paying a little bit more at this particular time. So the next thing to consider is going to be HOA. So HOA fees, I don't have any properties that are on any kind of HOA program. So it doesn't apply to me specifically, but I know if you are looking to get into that space where there is an HOA, you are going to have to consider that in your cost. Before you do that, you're going to have to check and make sure that the HOA will even allow you to purchase, or not purchase, but use your property as an Airbnb or short-term rental. A lot of places have began banning short-term rentals, especially HOAs. So that's something you definitely want to check into before going out and getting yourself into trouble. Because if you do that, they can shut you down, and once they do that, you've lost some money unless you have a lot of equity in the home. But if you did not purchase it with equity in the home and they shut you down pretty quickly, you're going to be in trouble. So it's a good thing to do your checks. Make sure that this place will approve it. The HOA will approve that before jumping into it. But again, the HOA is going to be a cost you're going to have to associate. The HOA is a cost you're going to have to consider in your pricing of your Airbnbs or your short-term rental. The next cost to consider is going to be your insurance. So now this varies tremendously based on the location, on the type of structure, the build of it, the proximity to water, there's a lot of things that depict the cost of insurance on your property. I have a property that's on a lake. That's lake water. You're gonna have to have flood insurance. I have another property that's in the country. These are like glamping sites, which is actually these here. These are gonna have specific type of wind and hail type of insurance because it's a glamping site or tents. So again, you're gonna have to consider what type of structure are you doing. Are you doing a glamping site like I did? Are you having like a lake house like I have? Or are you having, an A-frame building that's more like a typical home? All these costs are going to have to be considered. Just know if you are planning on purchasing near water, especially coastal areas, your insurance is going to be higher because you have a higher threat of flooding, wind damage. If you're in a hurricane area, hurricane insurance. Tornadoes if you're in a tornado area. Flooding insurance if you're by rivers. You have to look into this stuff because it can add up very, very quickly. To go alongside that as well, you're also going to want to look at the size of your home, the location of your home, of course, and just the overall build and structure of the home, because that's going to play a part of how much your insurance is going to cost. Because the insurance appraiser is going to go out there and look at this structure, this home, whatever, and if they see it's not, doesn't fit their criteria, they may still, insure you, but at a premium because they're taking a little bit more risk on. So again, just kind of check around, make sure, ask some questions with whoever you plan on getting insurance with prior to actually, signing on the dotted line, because it can get more expensive than you plan for, which will affect your bottom line. I know I've ran into mistakes in the past, and that's why I'm creating this course. So that way, hopefully somebody else can learn from my mistakes and teach myself something that I wish I would have done, when I first started. So the next one to consider is going to be your electricity. Again, electricity is going to vary based off of, one, your location, your climate, your provider, who is your provider. Just to touch a little bit more on providers. Here in Texas, we have powertochoose.org, where you go and you choose your specific provider. So when you go and you choose your specific providers, you can choose different plans that suit a specific type of property, type of person. They fit a little bit better of a lifestyle. So you can check out, for instance, there's some providers that will provide, free electricity from this time to this time, or reduced cost electricity from a specific time to this time. These are all things you want to check as well before you get into it. I know I ran into that problem when I didn't know, and my electricity bills were very, very high for the specific building. Again, so this is also going to be another thing you have to consider is the size of the home. If it's a big, large home, more than likely you're going to have a more expensive electricity bill. This is assuming you don't have solar and all that stuff. And again, based on how well insulated the home is, which you'll be able to tell in a home inspection as well before you purchase the property. But so again, using the lake house that we have and our geodomes, the geodomes all have smart appliances, smart AC heater deal, versus our lake house has just a traditional unit. The traditional unit uses up a lot more energy versus our smart appliances and our smart, heater and cooling system. Also, the size of the buildings are a lot smaller. So we have, 5 glamping sites, and our utility bill is only $130, and that includes our water. So that's typical. Sometimes it's a little bit more, sometimes a little less, on average. But if we go to the lake, it's about $300 and something, sometimes $400 and something during the summertime. So again, these are all costs you have to consider going into it, because sometimes they can catch you off balance if you aren't prepared for it, because they can get expensive. I have seen here in Texas some electricity bills in the 800s, which is a lot of money. So luckily that's not mine, but I have seen them in the 800s, so that's a huge cost. So definitely consider that before just jumping in, because it can get pretty pricey. So the next cost to consider is going to be your water bill. So this one's going to be kind of different, because it depends on your location and how your city does it. If it's city water, they may roll it into your sewer bill, or your trash bill, in other words. If you are rural, like I have both. So if you're rural, you're gonna have to drill your own water well. That is going to be an expense in itself. you're looking at about $20,000 here in Texas to drill a water well. That's a lot of money. But now that water well is going to need electricity to power it. So now your electricity bill is going to be added up a little bit more. And of course, you have that $20,000 bill to drill water. Now, if you're in the city, sometimes it's rolled into your sewer bill when they pick up trash, and your trash service bill. So again, this is going to be something you definitely want to consider. For one of my properties, I pay, I think, like $40 a month for water. It's separate from sewer. It's actually in the city, but it is separate from each other. It's a separate bill. It's a separate company. When out here in the country, I had to drill a water well, and I pay for electricity to use that water well. So that's going to be a cost you definitely want to consider if you are looking to do any kind of glamping sites. Consider the cost of a well. Like I said, here in Texas, it's usually at least $20,000, if not more. I have heard of people paying upwards of $80,000 for a well. This is more for like an irrigation type style, but I know one guy who drilled an $80,000 well and for a large lake that he made. So keep that in mind, that they can get very expensive. The cheaper end that I have seen have been around $15,000 with today's prices. Back then, you could have drilled them for about half of what they cost today. So just FYI, things have gotten a lot more expensive, and you're definitely going to consider your water bill if you're trying to do any kind of Airbnb. That is definitely rural for sure. Like I said, in the city, that's usually going to be enrolled with your sewer, and your water bill are going to be usually combined. Sometimes they will be separate, two separate companies, and you will have two different bills. So just keep that in mind. Like I said, it can get very expensive. So the next thing we're going to talk about is going to be your sewer bill. So first, we'll go ahead and talk about in the city. If you're looking to buy in the city, usually you don't have a septic tank. So we're going to go ahead and go no septic tank. We'll get into a septic tank later. But with no septic tank, it's usually going to include just your sewer collection. Sometimes it includes your water bill. And then, of course, you have some taxes that get tacked on, of course. But yeah, usually it's one bill. Like I said, in one of my properties, they are separate. Sewer, I think, runs about $20 for that. I can't remember exactly, 20, 25, something like that. It's not too much, but again, still a little bit of a cost you want to consider to add on monthly. Again, this is a monthly occurrence. Now moving on to the more expensive spectrum of things. If you're going to be doing a glamping site, or if you're in a rural location, or if you're in a location that just doesn't have city sewer, now you're going to have to open up the checkbook a little bit, because you're going to have to install a septic system. For me, I did most of the work myself. I did all the plumbing, and I did all the sewer lines myself. So it cut down on my costs significantly. But even just to get the septic tank installed was about $7,000, and to run a leach field. So $7,000 just for that, and I did more than half of the work myself. So it would have been about $14,000, $15,000. So basically what that is if you don't have city sewer, you're going to have to basically put like a big old tank in the ground, and then have all the piping coming from your home into that big old tank, and it's going to filter out, and all the clean water, it filters in the tank, gets pushed out into like a little irrigation area. That's how things are done in the country, or places that don't have city water. And that's going to be expensive. That's going to be, cheapest quotes I was getting about $5,000. That was about a year ago. I would bump that up to about $7,000 minimum now for a larger septic tank. There are some smaller septic tanks you can get away with a little bit cheaper. But for a large, 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom home, you're going to be looking at about $7,000 just for the tank itself. And then depending on the distance to your septic tank, the cost will go up. So keep that in mind. But you can get them cheaper if it's a small home or a small little septic tank you're getting installed. You can get it for a couple thousand. But yeah, something to consider. So the next cost to consider is going to be a reoccurring cost after each guest checks out. And that's going to be your cleaning fees. Your cleaning fee is going to be you have two choices really. You can either hire somebody to do this for you. You can pay them by an hour, maybe even start your own cleaning company. Excuse me. Or you can hire a cleaning company. The cleaning company typically is going to charge you a flat rate per cleaning. It's typically going to be more expensive, just letting you know, because there's a lot of overhead. If you hire a company, they have to pay their employees, they have to pay the manager, and they have to pay the company. The company has to make some money, right? How are they going to stay in business? So there's a lot more overhead when you are dealing with a company to clean your Airbnb. The route I went was I just hired an individual or individuals to clean my properties for me, and I pay them a flat amount. This works out better for me, and it works out better for them because they get to keep more money than if they worked for a company, and it costs me less versus if I paid the company. Another way to go about this is going to be paying them by the hour. If you have multiple properties, say you have 10, 12 properties, and you just hire 1 or 2 cleaning people and you pay them hourly to take care of your Airbnbs, assuming they're fairly booked most of the time, this is going to play in your advantage and also their advantage because now they have a consistent flow of work versus, somebody, if they're paid on a per job basis, it's probably not going to be in their best interest. Again, this is going to depend widely based on your location and where you are in the world and where your people want to be traveling to. But yeah, hourly is probably going to be in your best benefit. And if you have enough properties, of course, that'll keep the cleaners kind of employed year round, assuming you're in that kind of location where you can do that. Yeah, that's going to be the quick little rundown on cleaners. Cleaners is a regular occurrence. Every time they check in, check out, you're going to have cleaners come in. So the next reoccurring bill is going to be your lawn service. So your lawn service, this is going to vary based on the amount of lawn you have. If you have a big lawn, you're going to expect to be paying more. If you have a smaller lawn, you're going to expect to be paying less. Now, lawn service is going to be a little different because if you have just grass, they're going to charge you just to cut the grass, right? But if you have plants alongside that and you need trimming, they're going to be charging you extra to do any kind of hedging and trimming of any kind of plants and trees and stuff like that. So that cost is going to vary. Again, you can do something like you do with your cleaners, and you can hire a team or 1 or 2 people if you have multiple Airbnbs and pay them hourly just to be maintaining the properties. If you don't, then you can go out and hire a company, a lawn cutting company, to do this for you. Or if you know somebody or if you put out an advertisement and you find somebody who is willing to do it by the job and you pay them directly, again, that's going to benefit them more because they're going to get more money going solo versus working for a company, and you're going to be paying less as well. So just to add on to the lawn service, this is also going to vary based on what you want with the lawn. If it's a very high-end lawn and you want edging, you want weed eating, and you want leaf blowing and raking and this and that, you're going to expect to be paying more. So definitely consider that. Consider your location. If it's an HOA and you have to have it a specific way, and you consider that in your cost when you are going to be looking for somebody to maintenance your lawn. Now, aside from that, you're also going to have the maintenance of the home itself, the exterior structure of the home. Being on the coast, again, another example, you're going to have a lot of wind and salt coming on the home. So you want to make sure you take off all that stuff off the home itself, because if not, it's going to cause problems down the road. Also, we have the lake house. The lake house, it gets a lot of bugs. Now you need people to go out there and just take off bugs and spider webs and all kinds of stuff that form being so close to the water. And aside from that, like I said, a wooden fence. If you are in an HOA and they want your fence a specific way or to be kept up, you're going to have to roll that into your cost. Another thing associated with maintenance is going to be anything that breaks down. If you have a plumbing issue, if you have an electrical issue, have a sewer issue, most of these things I take care of myself. Luckily, I know how to do this stuff. But if I didn't, that would have to be a cost I would have to add to my per night bookings to kind of account for that. Again, you can't predict when these things are going to happen. You're just going to have to throw in a little buffer on your nightly bookings to cover those potential costs down the road. And it's hard because sometimes they do get more expensive than you may have thought previously. But I'm letting you know now, consider it in your bookings because it could impact you down the road. Especially now things have gone up so drastically, it's hard to keep up. But yeah, definitely something to consider. The next cost to consider is going to be your Wi-Fi. So Wi-Fi, again, is going to vary based off of a couple different things. First off, if you have a big home, you're going to want to get a mesh system. The mesh systems I have seen have worked the best for a large home. I have a two-story home, that lake house, and I have mesh systems because the Wi-Fi doesn't reach the entire home. So that's not a monthly cost unless you get a subscription, or unless you rent out the equipment, then it's going to be a monthly occurrence for you. If you just buy it outright, then you don't have the monthly occurrence. But for the Wi-Fi itself, that's going to be a monthly subscription to a Wi-Fi or internet provider. That's going to vary based off of location. Again, another example, things that I have run into, if you're in a general location where you have multiple providers, they're going to have more competition, so the prices are going to be a little lower. Versus like our geodomes here, we're so rural that we only have one or two providers to choose from, so the prices are a little bit higher. Well, not even a little bit, a lot higher, about 33% higher than what we would pay in the city. So again, there's no competition, so they can kind of raise their prices how they want. But that's going to be a cost you have to consider going in and looking at trying to start an Airbnb in a specific location. Again, location is going to be key on the type of internet service you can get and the quality of internet service you can get, as well as the cost of the internet service. For just rural areas, you're going to have what they call satellite internet usually. So one thing with satellite is it's very spotty, and it uses up a lot more. I don't even know how to explain it. It uses up a lot more, I guess, energy or whatever you call it. So it's not as reliable as, say, your fiber optic or any other type of city Wi-Fi you can get in the city. In the country, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit harder to access Wi-Fi. In the city, you are going to have more options and more things available, and typically higher speeds of internet versus being in the country. In the country, like I said, they have the satellite, and they do, in specific areas, have the one where you basically have to be at line of sight type of internet, where they basically bounce off of each other. That is available sometimes as well, just depending on your location and if there's towers in that location. But yeah, typically if you're in the city, you're going to have better service for Wi-Fi and a lot better pricing because you have more competitors. In the country, less competitors, people can raise the prices a little bit more, and you're kind of forced to pay it in a way. So another cost to consider, which is something I was totally oblivious to, I had no idea, is going to be boat fees or water fees, water usage fees, things like that. For us, we have the boat fees. There's a boat dock by the home, but it's shared between a couple other homes. So you have a monthly or annual payment to use that boat dock. So this is something I wasn't aware of. I didn't even think about that. Again, if you're in the coast or if you're on a lake or river, you may have those type of costs that probably aren't common. It's not something you typically think about. It's kind of like an HOA just to use the dock, just without, I guess, some of the rules and regulations. But yeah, that's going to be a cost you have to consider. Some are expensive. Mine is I think like 50 or 100 bucks a month. It's not that much. I mean, 50 or 100 bucks per year. So it's not that much. But there are some places, if you're in a higher end neighborhood, that is going to be maybe a couple $100, maybe a couple $1,000. Also boat storage, if you're going to have storage of a boat for guests to use, or if you have like a houseboat that you're renting out, you're going to have to pay a boat storage fee to have the boat there, as well as any toys. If you have any kind of like jet skis or things like that, you may have to charge fees for that as well. So the next one we're going to talk about is storage fees. If you do not have room, and again, you don't have to go this route, but if you don't have room in your apartment or your home, and you need to keep cleaning supplies or just bulk items for maybe the cleaners, or maybe you're not in the area and you keep extra supplies in a specific place, You may have to pay a storage fee or either buy a storage unit, something like that, but it's also something to consider in your cost if it's a location where you need storage. There's different types of Airbnbs out there, different types of rentals that require different types of things. So if you are going to need storage, definitely consider the cost, the monthly cost for storage, or the outright purchasing of a storage unit. So the next one is a cost associated monthly. At least for us, it's going to be cleaning supplies. Sometimes we will buy in bulk and we can get away for 2 or 3 months without buying something if, say, we find a good deal. One thing I would highly recommend is you get a Costco or a Sam's Club membership. I don't know if any other stores like that, but if you do, great. But a Costco or a Sam's Club or anything similar to that, it is going to be cost effective over time. It is going to save you some money, but those are going to be recurring fees, typically monthly. Usually, like laundry detergent is one of the first things that usually goes out, and any kind of like Lysol or bleach and things like that. What I also do for me is I buy things in pallets. I just started doing this actually. I bought Clorox in a pallet. So now I'm supplied for at least 2 years worth of Clorox, and it's fairly cheap. The amount of Clorox I got was probably about $2,000 or $3,000 worth of Clorox, and I got it for $300. So that's a huge savings, and if I don't use it, I can definitely sell it. I can still make a profit on that, and probably even get my $300 back. But yeah, that's something to consider. Definitely something to look into. You can get cleaning supplies in bulk. They're going to be at warehouses, and they're going to be usually like wholesale places, and you can buy bulk of like tissue paper, toilet paper, paper towels, Clorox, laundry detergent, and you can buy $2,000-$3,000 worth of stuff for a couple $100. If, like I said, if you have storage, so this is where a storage unit might be worth it. Again, consider the cost if it's worth it or not for you. But if you have a place to store all this stuff, it's going to be cost effective over the long term. If you don't have that kind of cash to put into stocking up front, then just definitely roll it into your monthly cost of buying, all your cleaning supplies for the home. Definitely something you need to consider. So the next cost we're going to go over is going to be the security system. Security systems are a little different now than they used to be back then. Most services now, you can just buy a security system and use it over Wi-Fi. But if you do want to go ahead and do the traditional, ADT or home monitoring systems, those are monthly subscriptions. Again, it's going to depend on your area, if it's even available. There's a lot of things to consider before doing this. But if you are considering that, or you think you would just like that, definitely consider that into your monthly cost of owning the home. And again, do you want perimeter surveillance, or do you want just surveillance inside like a noise system, or you can't really technically put a whole bunch of cameras in your home, but if you want a camera facing the door seeing who's coming in or out, things like that, just consider what type of service you are going to do if you are planning on getting a home security system. Again, something that most people don't typically think of. For us, we use the Wi-Fi, so we don't actually pay a monthly service, but you are going to have to purchase a home security system, like the camera system. Ours is on solar, so we don't really pay for electricity on that. It's all solar powered, and it's all controlled by my phone. I get everything through my phone, and it's no monthly subscription. So those are other options that are available out there for you. You're just going to have to police it yourself. If something happens, you have to be on it, versus if you go and you get actual company to monitor the home for you. So it's totally up to you. This is just going to be an upfront cost. Instead of a monthly subscription of maybe $30-$40, you're going to have to pay a couple $100 up front to get these cameras installed in the home, or in my case, do it myself. So another cost that most people might not consider is going to be any type of subscriptions you're going to have for your guest. Are you going to have a Hulu? Are you going to have a Netflix, a Disney? Are you going to have any type of subscriptions for your guest? If you are, definitely consider it in your cost for a monthly basis. Your nightly rate's going to be increased just ever so slightly to cover the cost of all those subscriptions. For us, most people typically have Netflix, Hulu, and all those things, so we don't actually provide that. So we can be a little bit cheaper and not charge for those services, because most people can just sign in and log into their accounts through our TVs, our smart TVs, instead of paying a monthly subscription for all these things that maybe they don't even use. Maybe they don't use Disney, maybe they don't use Hulu, maybe they have Netflix, whatever they prefer. This way they can use whatever they prefer. Most of the population today has an account with some type of subscription-based product like that. So we use just smart TVs and let them use whatever they want on their account. So another cost is going to be your pest control. Typically, this is going to be monthly. There are different types of pest control that can be pushed out a little further. But pest control is going to vary. Sometimes it's over $100. Usually it's over $100, depending on what type of pest service you're trying to get done, the size of the home. Are you trying to do the whole perimeter of the home? Are you trying to do the yard as well? Just that can go up tremendously. It just depends on what you want done. If you're trying to do the whole yard and the interior of the home and the perimeter of the house, you're going to be paying, a good amount of money. And this is going to have to be a reoccurring deal for you, because these things just don't go away one time and they're done forever. So again, consider that in your cost, in your monthly cost, because it can get pretty expensive for the most part. So yeah, quick little tip on that. The last one is going to be trash service. So on the lake house property, we have trash completely separate from everything else. So I don't know why. It's actually the first property that I've had where trash is independent. Actually, I take it back. This property here also. So I have two properties that are independent. The trash is just independent. This is also going to vary based off of the competitors. If there's a lot of competitors in that location, the trash service cost will be a little lower, versus being rural is going to be a little higher. For instance, in closer to the city-ish, the lake house, it's about $50 a month. In the country, you're paying about $175 a month just for trash service. So it gets pretty expensive. $175 a month is, it adds up. It definitely adds up. So consider that in your cost. Again, look at the location. I would do a lot of research before just jumping into an Airbnb like I did. I learned the hard way. That's why I'm putting this course together for you guys. So hopefully I can save you guys some of the growing pains of trying to do this, because yeah, it is growing pains. But yeah, just consider that. Consider your location. Consider how many providers there are in the area for trash service, because if there's a lot of providers, typically it's going to be a little lower. If there's not so many, they kind of dominate the area, so they can kind of price accordingly wherever, however they want. So just take that into consideration. But guys, I hope y'all gained some good, valuable information from this video. Maybe I gave you some costs that you maybe never have thought of, or maybe have never even came about. If I did, definitely let me know. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. I appreciate you guys watching. Until next time, be careful, be good, take care, and God bless. I'll see y'all guys in the next one. Bye-bye.